Well, I guess the urge came from just going to car races with my father as a kid. He's sort of the biggest car racing nut you'll ever meet. So I got the pleasure of going to car races, week in, week out. And our family holiday was a 3-month trip to Europe, watching Grand Prix, and I guess that's what sort of gave me the urge to go racing myself. And it probably came from having heroes back then like Alan Jones and Gilles Villeneuve and wanting to be like them. I guess when I was racing go-karts and making the move into cars, my ambitions were heading more towards open wheelers and trying to forge a career overseas, whether it be in Formula One or Indy cars. And back then it was a pretty hard game. There was myself and Mark Webber, and Russell Ingall had been over there before us, and there wasn't really a lot of guys sort of that had made it overseas from Australia. And now it's certainly a much more worn path, and we've got the likes of Briscoe and Will Power in IndyCar and Webber in Formula One, and that's certainly opening up a lot of doors for guys these days. But it was it was a pretty hard road back then, and I sort of give Webber a lot of credit for sticking it out and eventually making a career over there, because it was pretty hard going. And I guess that's where my ambitions lied. But I sort of was saying even back then that if I get to make a career out of it anywhere, I'd be more than happy. The transition, I guess, to me it seemed like a pretty big transition at the time. But even then, the engines weren't as powerful as Formula Ford these days, but it does still seem like a pretty big step. And they're much heavier than a go-kart, obviously, and the go-kart you can sort of drive by the seat of your pants, and it sort of it takes a little while to get that same comfort in a car on a big circuit. But it was a pretty successful step for me. I was pretty competitive in Formula Ford, thankfully, and Formula Ford, and I ended up spending 3 years there and eventually winning the championship. Probably for the first couple of years I spent a fair bit of time making mistakes and learning, because I was preparing my own car. But I think that was probably one of the benefits of doing it myself. I learned a lot about preparing the car, and it's still a part of the sport that I enjoy a lot now. Well, my first shot at the American racing scene was in 1996. I went over there and competed in the Formula Ford 2000 Championship, which was sort of led to by winning the Australian Formula Ford Championship. I was sort of introduced to the Van Diemen guys in America. Went over for a test, and the test went well, but unfortunately those days you still had to bring a lot of funding to the team, and I was fortunate to have some good corporate support from Australia that I took over there and competed in the Formula Ford 2000 Championship. But unfortunately I couldn't stay over there at the time for the year after, and I came back to Australia and competed in Formula Holden again, and then that led to a V8 supercar drive with Stone Brothers. From there, I was able to sort of raise the support again to go over and have another crack in America in 2000. But the dollars you were talking back then were was quite a lot for the Australian corporate world, and I was very fortunate to be able to go over there and have 2 cracks at it with good teams and win some races, but unfortunately not be able to make the same step again. The first part of it wasn't really intentional. I was racing Formula Holden here in Australia and trying to figure out how I was going to get back over to America to do Indy Lights, and at the time I was sponsored by Valvoline, and Steve Richards wasn't available one weekend, so they slotted me into the Valvoline Commodore of Gary Rogers for the weekend, and it just so happened to be wet actually, and I was a bit disappointed because I thought this was going to be a bit of a baptism of fire, but I happened to be on the best tyre for the weekend and came out of it looking pretty good, and that opened up more doors in my career than anything else that I'd done, whether it was win the Formula Ford Championship or the Australian Drivers Championship. That one race opened up more doors than anything else, and from that came a few different offers to do V8 supercars the year after, and to me that was a guaranteed income at the time that I hadn't seen before in car racing, and I went and did the 2 years with Stone Brothers in '98 and '99, and but I still had that sort of ambition to go overseas and compete at Indy Lights or Indy cars, and that was why I had another crack in 2000. My first win in V8 supercars was just happened to be the Bathurst 1000, and I guess if there was going to be a race you want to win any year, it's that one, to get that one off my back so early in my career was pretty special. I think at the time I probably didn't appreciate how big it was, and you know it certainly opened up a lot of doors, and is something that you know, was pretty hard to win the first one, but it's even harder to win the second one. Owning my own team and you know having an effect on my driving is something I've been asked before, and I think that while I had the couple of years at Brightech, you know I sort of always had other people doing all of the other stuff that I needed done that other teams would normally do for me anyway. So you know when I got to a race weekend, I wasn't worried about owning teams or who was doing what. It was you know all of that was done you know at the workshop. So you know I don't think that it had any effect on the way I was driving. I think that the biggest thing that affected my couple of years at Brightech was that you know we were coming from a brand new team. When I moved to the team in 2007, we had some good results early on, and started a development phase. And before the end of the first year, Ford had pulled their funding and pretty much put a stop to anything that we were developing, and that had a bigger effect on you know what we needed to do to initially catch up, and what we were doing to take the next step. And unfortunately, you know that's just the name of the game we're in. It's always exciting driving for a new team. You know, I've managed to change teams a few times in this game, and you know it always presents different challenges. I enjoy you know working with new guys and trying to see that team rise and win races, and you know I'm really happy with the challenges we've got in front of us this year. I'm really happy with the group of guys that we've got. I'm happy to be working with Phil Keat again, and you know I think that we've got all the ingredients we need to go out there and win some races, and win some races probably sooner than people think. So you know I'm very excited about all of the ingredients. It's just a matter of you know making it all work now. To me, you know, I think the biggest factor we have to deal with in the car is the temperature and the cardio side of it. I've been doing you know a lot more jogging than what I've done probably the last couple of years, and you know I'm feeling as fit as I have for quite a while. And the first couple of races were pretty easy. This event here at Clipsal is probably the toughest one that we do all year. So this is the real test. But you know, I'm really happy with the way things are going at the moment. I mean, I'm pretty sure I've got you know at least another 10 or 15 years ahead in V8 supercars to go. But you know, I guess ambition-wise, you know, I'm still keen to own my own team after I finish driving, and that you know I've still got the one car which we're running Carl Reindler in still. Personally, I still want to do a bit more racing overseas, whether that be a bit of sports car stuff. You know, I'd love to go over there and do Le Mans like I was meant to a couple of years ago, and you know, when the opportunity is available, I'll definitely grab that with both hands. The best advice that I've got is you know just try not to shortcut it too much. I mean, you know, I guess personally, you know, the experience that I had through doing go-karts for a few years and Formula Ford for a couple of years, and you know, going to America, you know, that experience is sort of invaluable. And when you try and sort of shortcut it and miss those steps, I think that you miss out on some of the important ingredients that you need to complete things. But you know, everyone's different. You know, I've seen a few guys shortcut it and you know do a good job of it. But you know, I think that you know if you sort of get impatient and try and skip steps or jump in too early and it's not necessarily with the right team, that's when it can sort of bring you unstuck. Ha 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 ha!